Welcome to Practical Dream Wisdom. I'm your host, Debra Arlyn. This show is about getting grounded in harmony and growing through healing. Please join me as we tap into the rich source and inner wisdom that our dreams consistently deliver. Through dream work, you will find insights and answers to your deepest questions, receive guidance for any lingering doubts, and resolve unconscious conflicts. Together, we will elevate your intuition and increase self-trust while unlocking incredible wisdom from the inner visions and sacred symbols of your dreams. Get ready to start working with your dreams. The Practical Dream Wisdom Show starts now.
All right. Hello, dreamers. Welcome back to the Practical Dream Wisdom Show. I am your host, Debra Arlyn, and I want to thank you for tuning in today and engaging with us on the Transformation Network. I am so excited to talk to you today. Today's episode is about everybody's favorite thing, nightmares. I love helping people understand and reconcile how to feel, first of all, about nightmares and how to approach working with their own nightmares. The episode is called Nightmares, Urgent Soul Messages. And so I want to start there. I want to start presenting the evidence for why nightmares are actually really good news and a very important and significant element of our psyche's self-help and self-healing system. So it's very common, especially for busy modern people, right? And I know we're all so busy every day. We wake up, we have a long list of to-dos and tasks to get to. We have work, we have children, we have ourselves to take care of. And so there is quite a temptation, especially if we wake up after having a really unpleasant dream or a nightmare, to kind of just shake it off, brush it off, and almost like shove it back down and not really think about it because it brings up, unpleasant, uneasy feelings. But I want to invite you to take that very first step, that if you do wake up after having kind of a jarring, scary nightmare dream, to not just try and shake it off or, forget about it right away because you don't want to feel those feelings, but to bring this into your awareness that a deep part of your soul and your own inner wisdom is presenting to you a dream that might feel like a nightmare and have scary images and, frightening scenarios playing out, because it cares very deeply about you and because there is something very pressing that is calling for your attention. And it's kind of like when we're children, right? And we do something wrong and we have to face a consequence for maybe not following the rules or being disrespectful. We think that when we have to face a consequence, it's because we're bad or we're wrong, or we're being punished. And nightmares sometimes feel like that too, right? It's like, oh, my own mind is, harassing me or punishing me. How could this possibly be a good thing? But just like as children, we have to learn how to face consequences and deal with conflict to help us grow and to help expand our understanding so that we can be more aware. And the same is true for nightmares. Our soul, our inner wisdom is giving us these dreams that feel like nightmares to help expand our awareness. Okay, so the first step in dealing with a nightmare is don't just try and shove it away and shake it off. And certainly don't think that you're a bad person because your own mind is playing out a scenario that in real life you would never, ever want to experience or choose to participate in. Nothing is wrong. You are not bad, but there is something very important for you to try and become aware of. And remember, we've talked about how dreams are never coming to confirm what we already know. That's not the point of dreams. Dreams channel through our subconscious mind, and they are the bridge that connects us to the universal mind, or what Carl Jung called the collective unconscious. Right? So it is pure awareness. It is pure wisdom coming through your own subconscious mind for you to help you grow. So what are nightmares trying to call our attention to then? Like, what are these urgent soul messages about? And we're going to start diving into the most common kind of nightmare plots and themes that we see recurring throughout everybody's dreamscapes. And we're going to dive deep into the specifics of all of those. But in general, this is also another thing I love to help people understand is that nightmares are trying to call our attention to our own resistance to change and transformation. Now, let's break that down a little bit. So, a lot of times I'll be working with a client, and even in my own dreams early on, I would have a nightmare and I would think, oh, this dream is trying to warn me about something bad that might happen, or it's trying to tell me something that I already know, like I need to deal with this problem in my life. And we don't like to think about how we are resisting unconsciously big changes and big transformations in our life that we're not really even aware of. So it is our own resistance to accepting change or leaning into a change or transformation of some point that we resist through avoidance, we resist through suppression. And we're not doing this consciously. It's just that in order to get through our daily lives, we kind of run on a script and we run on a program. And if we stay unaware of something for too long, our own wisdom will go, hey, red alert, 911. It's time to become aware of something that is actually going to help you through this next change or transition in your life. And that doesn't always mean it's an outer change or a transition. In fact, more than likely, it's an inner change. It's an inner transformation that we're avoiding or suppressing, that our own psyche is saying, hey, we've got a problem here. We can't continue to run on the same script. We need to open it up. We need to expand. So first thing, nightmares are not bad. You're not a bad person for having them. You've done nothing wrong. They're actually really good news, and they're trying to alert you to your own resistance to more than likely a deep inner change or shift that needs to happen for your own health and wholeness and well-being. Now, why do we resist change and transformation? Well, dreams are also tapping into our deepest impulses and instincts. And as we know, as a species, we have evolved with a very strong survival instinct. Our number one impulse is to stay alive, right? So when we feel stressed, when we feel threatened, when we feel like possibly something is happening outside of our control, we have a stress response in our body. It starts in the brain, right? And we go into either fight, flight, fawn, or freeze. And so nightmares are tapping into that most basic impulse that we have in our brains to stay alive. And that's why they feel so intense, right? Because most of the nightmares and the themes and the plots that present as nightmares, something very important is at stake. It's either our life or the life or lives of somebody that we care very deeply about. And so we experience these intensely charged emotions out of that stress response, because it is our most basic impulse to stay alive no matter what the cost. But it's important to remember that that is only a certain part of our own psyche and our own awareness that believes that dying or death is the end, right? And that is our ego. That is the part of us that believes that all we are is this body, this identity, this, physical form living on this planet at this time, dealing with these circumstances. And so our stress response is really tied into that ego identity of, if I die, I no longer exist. And I know we're getting really deep here, but I promise this is all very important and be very helpful for you in starting to work with your own dreams. These are things you can kind of drip into your own mind and awareness to help ease that tension that comes up when your stress response is really activated by a dream or a nightmare. And I have found that what really helps me get out of the ego's grip of, that survival instinct is to remember what Einstein, brought to our awareness, which is that energy can neither be created or destroyed. It can only transform into another form. Okay, so how is that helping us with nightmares? Well, without getting too sciencey and diving into, quantum physics and all these things, at our core, we as a species are energetic beings, right? And we keep discovering that first it was the atom or the particle, that the more you break down what makes us and what makes everything in the world, it's energy, right? And so we cannot actually be destroyed. We cannot actually go extinct, but we can transform, right? And even in more fundamentalist religions where they don't necessarily believe in energy or reincarnation, there tends to be a strong theme of the afterlife or many levels of an afterlife. So our consciousness is aware that even if we stop existing in this particular identity and form, the energy, the consciousness that makes us who we are is going to transmute. It is going to shift into another form. Now, what that form is and what happens, we don't really know. But it's important to keep this in mind because this is how we cultivate that meta-awareness when we feel stressed, when we feel threatened, when we feel like something really massive is at stake. We want to ground and we want to remember that it is only a certain part of our identity that is really attached to this particular lifetime and form and is very resistant to change because change, again, hits that impulse, that survival impulse. It's like, if I don't feel in control, then something bad might happen. I might die or I might, cease to exist. So nightmares are trying to help us bring in that higher awareness that we are consciousness, we are energy, and it's okay to lean into change. We don't have to resist transformation, and we don't have to suppress any information or data that our psyche wants to bring to us to help us move forward. Okay, so that got kind of deep there, but hopefully you can see the point of thinking about these things and allowing them into your own awareness. It's actually, I find, very grounding and helpful. So nightmares are trying to alert us to our own resistance to change and overcome our very strong, wired-in stress response to survive no matter what. So when you wake up in the morning and you have a nightmare, of course, always, if you have a journal, write it out and don't skip on any details, even if they feel possibly too graphic or not something you really want to think about. Just write them out without judgment and close your eyes and take a few deep breaths and just remember, this is only a certain aspect of you that feels like this is a life or death situation. What's really going on here is that you are ready for a big change. Your soul has an urgent message for you. It is wanting to help you align with a deep inner shift. And once you become aware of what that inner shift is that's needed, it'll automatically start showing up in your outer world, right? Because our inner world creates our outer world. Who we are, how we see the world, how we live on the inside is reflected in our outer world experiences. And that's what nightmares are here to help us do. They're not bad. They feel scary, but they are helping us heal. They are helping us take better care of ourselves. They're helping us get out of our daily program and script and look within and go, where do I need to transform? Where am I ready to grow and expand? So with that said, let's dive in to some of the most common nightmares that there are. And let's start with being chased. This is actually the most common nightmare. Feeling like you're running from something in your dream, something is chasing you, or perhaps you're inside a home or a building and there are people on the outside trying to break in. And so that's triggering your flight or fight response, right? So when we are being chased in a dream, when we are running from something in a dream, we want to look at that from, like the 10,000 foot view and think about this in the lens of personal development. And we probably all know people that we could describe, or maybe we are these type of people. It's like, oh, they just run from everything, right? They don't want to deal with conflict. They don't like to deal with confrontation, so they just run. And really at the root of a dream about being chased or running away from something or feeling like something on the outside is trying to break in and attack you, this is really about avoidance and, giving in to that flight response. So a very common nightmare dream is people running from a bad guy. And you can dive into these types of plots and themes and look at, okay, well, what are you running from? Is it a bad guy? Well, what does that bad guy represent? Is it a part of you? Is it your own shadow? Perhaps as you're working through the dream and you're asking yourself, what am I running from? What is stressing me out so badly that I feel like I can't even face it? What is making me feel like I have to flee in my life? And just let your own consciousness reveal to you what you are maybe unconsciously avoiding and running from. And more than likely, it's an inner aspect of yourself. And in fact, most of the time we start working with dreams and we find that what we're running from is our own anger, or possibly a part of ourselves that we really don't want to bring into our everyday life because our ego and our identity doesn't feel safe showing that part of ourselves. Our anger or our rage, possibly we're running from something from the past, something that happened to us or something we did in the past. So if you are experiencing a nightmare where you're being chased and you're running from something, or someone is outside of a home trying to break in, the first thing you want to look at is, okay, obviously I'm stressed and I'm wanting to run and flee from something. Let's take a pause. Let's meditate and ask my own higher awareness to help me see what it is that I'm avoiding and running from. And when you want to work with the dream, a great way to work with the nightmare of being chased is to go back into the dream. Close your eyes and put yourself right back in, the height of the action, but this time consciously choose to stop running or to stop fleeing. And even if all you can do in your mind is just imagine yourself turning and facing that which is chasing you or scaring you, what you're doing is you're starting to communicate with your own psyche. And you're saying, I'm not afraid anymore. I'm not going to run from this. And one of the most beautiful experiences that I have when I'm doing a dream coaching session with a client is we go into these visualizations, and it's incredible then how the dream shifts, right? They come face to face with the thing that they are running from. And usually there's a massive inner shift and a big emotional release because they've been running from this thing for a really long time. Hence why it's turned into a nightmare, right? Their own soul is saying, we cannot run from this anymore. We don't want to. We're ready to face this. So being chased, running from something means that there's an element or a part of your world that you've been avoiding and don't feel strong enough yet to face, but your nightmare is coming in and saying, it is time to face this. Let's do this. Let's expand. Let's grow. Let's integrate courage. And so if you can visualize yourself turning and facing that which is chasing you in your dream, you're taking a huge step in the direction of integrating courage and boldness and being better at dealing with conflict and stress. Okay, let's pause there. And when we come back, we'll dive into several more very common nightmare themes and plots and how to work with them for our own growth. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back to the Practical Dream Wisdom Show. We are diving into the most common nightmare themes and plots and breaking down how nightmares are actually not bad or too scary to work with, or, showing us that we have crazy, impulses and urges within us. They're actually really good news. And they are messages coming to us very urgently to grab our attention so that we can do some really deep and transforming inner work and expand our own personal consciousness and create the lives that we want to create without fear and without resisting deep change. So we just talked about a nightmare where we're being chased, but I have found that the second most common nightmare plot is teeth falling out. And I've had this dream many, many times, and pretty much everyone I've worked with has had this dream. So let's dive into, what does it mean when you have a nightmare where your teeth are falling out? So it's always important to remember too that dreams have multiple layers of meaning. So when I talk about, in general, what these dreams are pointing us to, that isn't an end all be all interpretation. And in fact, this is why getting coaching and working with a coach around our own dreams and nightmares, instead of just looking for, generic interpretations, is really important, because the dreams are using, imagery and symbolism and patterns because it knows we will recognize them, but it does have a very personal message for you as well. And you never know what you're going to uncover when you start diving into a dream. So even when I'm working with a client that has this dream and I go, oh, here we go, the teeth falling out dream, we always want to approach it personal to the person. And see why our inner wisdom chose this particular plot and theme, like what's really at the root of it for this particular person. But when we're talking about teeth falling out, it brings our attention to our mouth, right? And this very important aspect of our human body, our mouth. And what do we do with our mouth? And what do we do with our teeth? We speak, we smile, we scowl, we chew on things. Our mouths are incredibly important for our nourishment and our ability to connect with others. So when our teeth start falling out in dream, our inner wisdom is trying to point us urgently to one of those elements that we use our mouth and our teeth for. And it could be communication, right? And if you are a person who is more in that people pleaser mode, or you suppress what you really want to say because you don't think anybody cares or you don't want to get in trouble, you might start having these teeth falling out dreams because your own soul is wanting you to express. It's wanting you to communicate. It's wanting you to say what you really think and feel. And in fact, we know now that when we suppress what we want to say and we suppress our feelings and we don't express and we don't communicate, this leads to disease. This leads to ill health, and our immune system starts to suffer. We are not meant, again, we're energetic beings. Everything we do has an energetic element, even our communication. So if we're not expressing ourselves verbally, and we're suppressing that energy, it has to go somewhere. And it gets very unhappy and not in the best health. So if your teeth are falling out in a dream to the point where it's a nightmare, a good place to start is, am I expressing myself? Am I communicating in my work, in my life, in my relationships? Am I really truly being authentic? Am I really saying what I want to say? And you can do a great meditation and visualization on this with the nightmare. You can, imagine yourself with all your teeth back, and in your own imagination, speak what it is you are too afraid to speak in real life. Express yourself, communicate, show your own psyche that you are willing to take that step. Because if we can see something in our mind, if we can imagine it, that means we can make it a reality. And so seeing it in our mind and accepting that this is the path that we want to go down cues our soul to, hey, let's try something different next time. Next time we're in a real life scenario where someone's asking for our opinion or something's happening and I want to say something, I'm going to say it and I'm going to express myself. I'm going to transmute that energy. Okay, so teeth falling out can often be about your soul wanting you to stop suppressing yourself. But again, we also smile. Our teeth and how we show our teeth can either be giving someone a nonverbal cue that, yes, I hear you, I agree, This is pleasing to me. Or, in the animal kingdom, the instinct when animals feel threatened or want to respond to their environment is to show their teeth in a snarl and in aggression. So if you are somebody who's uncomfortable with conflict, anger, or possibly being seen as an aggressive person, your teeth might start falling out because it's saying, it's time to show your teeth. It's time to be a little bit more assertive and a little bit more aggressive. Like you need to respond to your environment differently. And I find that this is very common for men, actually. A lot of times women are the ones that say, hey, we don't ever get to express our anger. But actually, men have a lot of anger and a lot of primal aggression and energy that they're often suppressing in order to be in their workplaces or be in their relationships. So they have a lot of these dreams where their teeth are falling out. And that's their own inner wisdom saying, it's time to be a little bit more assertive and not be afraid to respond to what's happening in our environment and say, this is not pleasing to me. I am upset about this. I feel a little bit threatened. Again, not being aggressive, but letting go of the fear of being seen as aggressive and letting that kind of primal instinct to defend or to say, hey, this isn't working out for me, let that come to the surface. The other element of teeth falling out is that we use our teeth to chew and to nourish our bodies. So it could also be an urgent message from your own soul and inner wisdom saying, we're not nourishing ourselves. We're not taking in the right sustenance. And if we don't, we're not going to need our teeth if we don't use them to take in healthy food and absorb what we need to absorb into our bodies. Now, again, this isn't literal. This is symbolic, right? Teeth falling out is a symbolic, metaphorical, universal image that our dreams use to help us tune into what we need personally, right? And a lot of times teeth falling out is tied to a dentist needing to go get our teeth repaired or go to the dentist, which is often a cue that we need outside help, right? When we go to the dentist, it's because we need somebody who has more expertise and knows how to help us with our teeth come in and do their work. So I once had a dream where my teeth were falling out and my own mother said to me, you need to go to the dentist. And I woke up and I was like, time to hire another coach, because there were things going on that I needed somebody with a little bit more expertise and an elevated sense of having worked on this issue more than me. I needed to go and get help. So teeth falling out, so much that can be, pulled apart from this dream when our natural tendency is to wake up and go, oh, that was so gross and I don't want to think about that. But if we can ground ourselves and we can lean into it, we can improve our communication. We increase our emotional intelligence. We start looking at what are we consuming? Is it nourishing our bodies or not? Are there emotions and things that I need to express for my own health? Or do I need to go hire someone and help me with something? So much within that dream. Let's jump now to drowning. So a very common nightmare theme is to be drowning or to be in a room or somewhere where the water is rising and we start to panic. So water is the element most associated with emotions. So a dream where there is a lot of water and, water rising or the fear of drowning, our soul is trying to point us to emotions, our own emotional landscape inside. And again, not the emotions that we're aware of in our daily life, but the emotions that we are suppressing or the emotions that we're really uncomfortable with, like our fight, flight, or freeze response, right? We're stressed out about something, but maybe we're not even willing to admit to ourselves that we are stressed about something, that we have strong emotions. And a very strong emotional charge in a dream where there's water or drowning is panic, right? Feeling panicked, feeling scared, feeling overwhelmed. So if you wake up from a dream where you were drowning, or maybe someone you cared about was drowning, you want to just ground yourself and ask your own inner wisdom to help you deal with some strong emotional charges that maybe you feel like you aren't strong enough yet to deal with. Or ask yourself this question: what area of my life is causing me to panic? And you'll be amazed at how, when you just start self-reflecting after a nightmare, the answers come very quick. We often don't trust our own inner wisdom, and therefore we don't ask ourselves these questions. We go out into the world and we look for the answers outside of ourselves. But what's so cool about dreams is that they come from within. They are loving soul guidance coming from within us, which means that the answers will also come from within us. If we can take the leap to trusting our own mind and our own dreams as our own personal spiritual teachers, then why wouldn't we self-reflect and go in and ask for answers that in our waking life? So start dialoguing with your own inner wisdom after a nightmare. Ask the questions, get curious, and you'll notice that the downloads, the more you do it, and the answers start coming quicker and quicker. So a dream about drowning is pointing us to emotional overwhelm, or possibly long suppressed emotions that are ready to come into our conscious awareness. Okay. Now this dream, the next one, is the end of the world dream, the apocalypse dream. And I have had a reoccurring nightmare since I was a child about the world ending. And of course, I was raised in a home and school that talked a lot about the book of Revelation and the second coming of Christ, and it always just terrified me. So I had a lot of nightmares about that. And so I always thought that the nightmare was kind of showing me what was going to happen in the future. But it was kind of a huge relief to me when I realized that this type of nightmare where, maybe aliens are invading, or, the world is ending, there's some sort of massive war happening, isn't really about the future at all. It's about our own internal landscape and our own very strong resistance to change and transformation, and feeling like possibly a change or a transformation is being forced upon us that we're not excited about, that truly terrifies us. So when we have nightmares about the world ending, our own inner wisdom is trying to get us to see that we have resisted a very important change for a very long time. And we're kind of in a victim mode, so to speak. Like, we're resisting so much and we feel like something is being forced upon us that we don't want to deal with. We feel like we have no choice, and we're just running, we're just fighting, we're just so stressed out. We don't know what to do with this massive world-ending change. And so you want to start breaking down, well, who's with me in this dream? Is it my family? Is it my friends? Is it a bunch of foreign people? Like, who is with you in the end of the world dream is going to give you a big clue about what area of your life feels like you're being forced to change and you really don't want to, and it's just so scary. And it's also a great time to start journaling. Start journaling about, what do you feel like you're not in control of? What do you feel like is happening to you that you wouldn't choose? Or what is possibly the biggest fear that you could think of in terms of your own sense of identity? It could be something as simple as, if you have a strong identity attachment to being, again, a people pleaser or a perfectionist, and the scariest thing in the world to you is being seen as someone who's bad or wrong or makes a lot of mistakes or a failure or isn't nice, you might get an end of the world apocalypse dream because your own psyche is saying, we are so limited right now. We're so attached to this identity of perfectionism and pleasing, and we need to expand out of that right now, so that we have more options available to us, so that this inner shift can happen where we're not so critical and we're not so terrified and anxious. So end of the world dreams, they're not about the future, and they're not about really bad, scary things happening. They're about our very strong resistance to an inner change and shift that we desperately need in order to expand and raise our own consciousness. Okay. And sometimes the apocalypse dream comes in to show us that we are going to go through a really big change. And although it might feel like the end of the world, it's actually a brand new start for us, a fresh start. So a lot of women also have this dream when they know they need to leave a relationship or a relationship is ending, but they've maybe been holding on for a long time and it's time to let go. And it might feel like the end of the world to lose this person or end this relationship, but it's time for a fresh start and a new change of scene. All right, so we've gone through chasing, drowning, teeth falling out, end of the world dream. And when we come back, we are going to look at a dream that I was sent by a client that involves quicksand. So stay tuned, hang in there, we'll be right back. Welcome back to the Practical Dream Wisdom Show. Thank you for listening. And hopefully by now, as we've been diving deep into, common nightmare plots and themes, you're starting to get a sense that nightmares are actually really loving messages from the deepest part of ourselves, trying to wake us up and get our attention so that we can expand, grow, heal, take things that are currently suppressed or unconscious to us, find the courage to integrate them with more awareness and create more beautiful, harmonious lives. And just because we have a nightmare doesn't mean that we're bad people or we've done anything wrong. It just means we are ready. We are ready to do some deep inner transforming work. So we're going to dive into a dream that I was emailed from somebody. But before I dive into that dream, I wanted to mention that nightmares often have some element of violence in them. And unfortunately, violence is an inherent part of our psyche and our instincts and who we are as human beings. And we all do need to come and reconcile that. And it's very uncomfortable. But if there are elements of violence in your nightmare that result in blood or bloodshed, blood is a very common symbol that dreams and nightmares use to speak to our own life force, our own energy, our own, without blood, we cannot be alive. So if you have a nightmare where there is a lot of blood, what your inner wisdom is trying to get you to see is that if we don't deal with this thing in our waking life, it's going to drain us of our own energy. It's going to kind of suck the life force out of us. And so whatever inner conflict your nightmare is trying to get your attention to, it's doing so because remaining unconscious to this inner conflict or remaining in avoidance of it or suppression of it, or maybe not even being honest with ourselves that this inner conflict is affecting us, the nightmare is trying to say, we're getting drained here. We're losing precious life force energy. And we don't want to do that. We want to be vibrant. We want to be revitalized and in great health. So if there is violence in your dream that results in blood or bloodshed, it's also really important to look at what body part that blood was coming from. If it's coming from an arm, our arms represent our ability to hold things, carry things, do things. I once had a dream where there were holes poked all over my body and blood was coming out. And it was about, how this certain dynamic and relationship with a person was really draining me. And the dream was trying to get my attention, like, this is not a good person to engage with. So don't be afraid to work with the symbols. Again, all the symbolism in dreams and nightmares are completely neutral. In fact, they are what we call archetypes, right? Archetypes are repeating universal patterns. And that's why we can say that there are more common nightmares and more common dreams than not, because everything is a pattern. We are species that need patterns to help us identify and make sense of things. And our own inner wisdom knows this. Hence why we have chasing, drowning, teeth falling out, the apocalypse, falling. All of these patterns of symbols are innate to us. And if we can get out of our own way and not overanalyze them, but just see them for what they are, our dream landscapes and our nightmares will make a lot more sense to us intuitively and practically. So I was emailed a dream from somebody who was curious what this dream meant for her. And the dream was she was in a park and she saw her mother across from her, across the park. And so she started to walk towards her mother, but she quickly found that she was in quicksand. And the more she tried to get herself through the quicksand or out of the quicksand to reach for her mother, the more she started sinking. And the quicksand turned into really dark, muddy, gross mud. And she was reaching her hand up for her mother to help her. And her mother was frozen and did not help her. And she woke up, but her sense was that she was going to die in the quicksand. So pretty simple nightmare. And when I emailed her back, I just asked her a few questions because there are some really important symbols in this nightmare. First of all, being at the park and seeing your own mother across the way, right? So there's a big distance between her and her mother. And she is trying to, bridge that distance. She's trying to get to her mother, but yet she's falling into quicksand that turns into mud and she can't get out. And her own mother isn't helping her. So there's lots of ways to work with this dream. But again, just the element itself of, succumbing to quicksand or dying in mud. We see this in movies a lot, right? Like our hero is like getting stuck in quicksand and mud and we're like, how are they going to get out? Again, it's that feeling of panic and overwhelm and not being in control. And quicksand is really interesting because you're sinking down into the earth. And the more you panic, the more you move, the more you try and do to get yourself out of the quicksand, the sooner you succumb to it. And so that right there is her own inner wisdom saying there's an element of her life where she's trying too hard. She's overcompensating, she's possibly panicking, and that is actually backfiring on her. And then you look at how she's reaching for her own mother for help and her mother is frozen and doesn't help her. Well, you could really dive deep if you want to go the Freudian route and talk about her relationship with her own mother, which is certainly at play here. Or we could look at the fact that her own mother is reflecting to her own maternal instinct, her own ability to care for herself, to nurture herself, to mother herself. And, after dialoguing with her through this email, she had an awareness that she actually goes into overdoing it, overperforming, trying too hard to please others or to connect with others at her own cost, right? She's not helping herself. She's not loving herself. She's not caring for herself. And she's not putting her own needs first. She is just trying to please everybody and get people to like her. And again, these aren't bad things. We all do this. But her nightmare came to her at that point in time because it was saying, we cannot continue this. We cannot neglect ourselves. We can't be ambivalent about our own stress and just try and continue to overcompensate by doing more for other people. That's not going to work for us anymore. It's time to expand out of that. So I thought that was a really, really cool dream, and I'm glad that she sent it to me. And this is the kind of thing that when you start working with your own dreams or working with a coach, or even just booking a dream coaching session, it's amazing what you can pull out of something that maybe at the time feels like totally irrelevant, totally nonsensical, or like not even worth the time to look at. But I would bet that person will never forget that dream, will never forget that nightmare. And as she moves through her life now, she's going to make more conscious choices about, okay, why am I trying so hard to connect with that person? Or why am I pushing myself to the max to deliver on this, project at work, when really it would be a good time for me to do some self-care, or it would be a good time for me to notice my own inner critic telling me I'm not good enough and reframing that, and speaking more loving kindness to myself, just like I would like my own mother to do for me. And when we start making more conscious choices because of things that came to us through dreams and nightmares, we become empowered. This is empowerment. Making more conscious choices because we have self-reflected about our own inner landscapes and our own minds and trusting our own inner wisdom, that is true empowerment. And that's why I'm so passionate about dreams and nightmares and helping people see that this is a self-healing mechanism. This is a self-empowering mechanism, and it's free. and it's coming to you every single night. And even when it presents as a nightmare that you just want to forget about, it's for your own highest health and wholeness. Okay, so we've gone over a lot, but I want to bring on our producer, Sierra, who is very interested in dreams. And Sierra, how are you? Are you here with us?
I am. Hello, I am good.
Okay, good. Well, we have a few minutes. I just wanted to chat with you. Is there anything you want to share or ask, or what's on your mind?
I do have a question. So,
Yeah.
growing up, there was a specific animal that would be in my dreams that scared me so bad. Like I would wake up immediately every time I saw this animal. And I'm
Yeah.
curious if different animals have different meanings or animals in general. I'm just curious about
Yeah.
that.
Great question. Well, first, can I ask what the animal was in
Yeah.
your recurring nightmare?
Yeah, it was a white tiger. Every time I
Ooh.
saw one, I was so spooked.
Okay, so tell me about the white tiger. What was it? What about it scared you and spooked you?
It wouldn't even really be a part of my dream. It would
Mm,
just out of nowhere just like kind of pop up and growl, and then that kind of like jump scare like woke me up almost.
yeah. Yeah. So when you think about an animal or even a person growling, right? And we kind of talked about this with the teeth falling out, like showing aggression, or when the white tiger is growling, what is it communicating to you that feels scary?
Oh, I don't even know. I just feel like I just felt like trapped almost because I guess I wouldn't immediately wake up. I think when it popped up and then it would growl and I
Mhm.
kind of just like was stuck there until I was able to wake myself up because I was too scared to
Mm,
be in the same place as the tiger, I guess.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So that kind of the way you just described that, it's like, oh, I feel trapped and then I would have to kind of force myself to wake. That feels a little bit like the fawn or freeze response to stress, right? Like it's not like you immediately got out of there. You had to kind of consciously get yourself out of that situation, although you felt very scared.
Yeah.
Does does
Yeah.
that resonate for you?
Yes.
Yeah. So the white tiger and its growl is your own inner wisdom saying, there's a stress response that happens that possibly makes us freeze. And what's stressing us is when something or someone is communicating what? Anger, rage, or just power, right? And so animals are very powerful, right? And so your own inner wisdom is trying to help you see that there is an element within you that is ready to work with fear of authority, fear of power, fear of aggression, fear of anger, and help you transcend that fawn or freeze response. Does that resonate for you, Sierra?
It really does, actually. Yes.
Do you want to speak some more to that?
I think I'm coming to learn that in weird, freaky situations in life, or yeah, people with high authority, I do kind of freeze up. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I'm connecting dots.
That's beautiful. And what I find really interesting is that it's a white tiger. And so the colors are also symbolic. And what does white kind of represent to you or in general, do you think?
To me, it seems more like bright and unique, and I don't see a white tiger as often. So,
Yeah. Yeah. So that's also a cue that there's something uniquely important for you in working with the totem of a white tiger and reclaiming your own authority, reclaiming your own inner power. That it's not bad, right? Because when we have a freeze response, a lot of times it's like, this is bad, or this authority feels scary or possibly threatening to me. But the fact that the tiger is white, it's showing you this is a good quality that you're ready to integrate if you can work on that stress response.
okay. So,
Beautiful.
yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you so much,
Thank
Sierra,
you.
for hopping in and sharing that with us. And I hope that everybody listening got something out of looking at nightmares. And in fact, I hope you're actually excited to have a nightmare now, right? Next time you wake up and you're like, that was crazy, that was scary, or that's a reoccurring nightmare, this white tiger growling at me. Trust that your own inner wisdom is telling you, you are ready. You are ready for integration. There's something really important and urgent in this dream for you that if you can really look at it and work with it, you can open up new parts of yourself and create new experiences for yourself. All right. So get those dream journals by your bed, start working with your dreams. And if you haven't yet, please go download my free ebook, 7 Ways to Unlock Practical Dream Wisdom. I talk about nightmares in there, and I give you lots of practical self-help guidance to start working with your dreams and your nightmares, because in the end, it's all for your highest good, all for your highest health. Thank you, everybody, for listening today. We will see you next time. Have a great day. Hi, I'm Debra Arlyn, the host of Practical Dream Wisdom, and be sure to tune in every second and fourth Wednesday at 8 a.m. Pacific, 11 a.m. Eastern on Transformation Talk Radio, where we have been unraveling the magic of dreams in a practical, enjoyable, and accessible way. Nearly 26 years of our lives are spent sleeping and dreaming. This is an evolutionary necessity and an invaluable self-healing and self-empowering practice for the body, mind, and soul, not to be dismissed or overlooked. For more information, visit my website, www.debraarlyn.com.